You know, when you look at a huge mountain range or a deep canyon, it's easy to think, wow, that's been there forever, that it's permanent. But the truth? The ground under our feet is actually a battlefield. It's this constant, slow-motion war between forces that build a world up and other forces that are trying to tear it all back down. So, let's get into this incredible story of how our world is never, ever finished.
And that brings up a really big question, one that might seem kind of obvious at first. I mean, if you've got forces grinding away at the continents, wearing them down for literally billions of years, why isn't the Earth just a smooth, flat, water-covered ball by now? What's pushing back?
Well, it turns out there are two teams in this fight. On one side, you've got the builders. Geologists call them endogenetic forces. These are the ones that come from inside the Earth. Think of volcanoes spewing out new land, or the incredible crunch of tectonic plates pushing up massive mountain ranges. And on the other side, you've got the destroyers, or exogenetic forces. These guys work on the outside, on the surface, and their one and only mission is to wear everything down with wind, water, and ice.
Okay, so for the next few minutes, let's focus on Team Destroyer, the powerful forces that are working 24/7 to flatten the landscape. This is the story of the Great Leveling Process.
Now there's a scientific name for this whole leveling act. It's called gradation. It's basically the sum of everything that tries to bring the Earth's surface to a nice, common level. And it works in two ways. You have degradation, which is all about leveling things down, wearing away the high spots, and then you have aggradation, which levels things up by filling in the low spots with all that eroded debris. But right now we're going to stick with the demolition crew. Degradation.
So how does this takedown actually happen? Well, it's a three-step process. First up, you've got weathering. That's the rock breaker. It's where rain, ice, and even the air just attack a rock, weakening it and cracking it into smaller pieces without even moving it. Then comes mass wasting, the gravity slide. This is exactly what it sounds like. Gravity just takes over and pulls all those loose chunks of rock downhill. Think landslides. And finally, the most important step, erosion, the great takedown. This is where an agent, like a river, comes along, scoops up all that broken material, and hauls it away for good.
And when we talk about erosion, there are a few players, wind, glaciers, waves, but there is one absolute superstar, one force that stands above all the rest as the true master sculptor of our planet. And that, of course, is running water.
Okay, this is a really key distinction to make. Running water is what's called a geomorphic agent. Why? Because it can actually pick up material and transport it. It does the work. Gravity, on the other hand, isn't an agent. It can't carry a thing. Gravity is just the directional force. It's the boss in the back pointing and telling the water which way to go, which is always downhill.
So if water is the muscle, where does all this powerful running water come from? Well, it all kicks off with rain. And when that rain hits the ground, it can go a few different ways. Some of it flows right over the top. That's our surface runoff. Some of it soaks in a little and travels just under the surface. And some of it seeps way down deep and becomes groundwater. But here's the key. Eventually, a whole lot of it gathers together in channels, building up power and forming the very streams and rivers that carve up our entire world.
And this is where the story gets really, really cool. Because a river valley isn't just a thing that's there. It actually has a life cycle. It's born, it matures, and it grows old. Starting, of course, with its wild and energetic youth.
When a river is young, it's like a teenager with way too much energy. It's usually up in the highlands, and it pours every ounce of its power into cutting straight down. This vertical erosion carves out that classic, steep-sided V-shape you see in canyons. The valley is super narrow, the slope is steep, and it's all about digging deeper.
But as the river gets a bit older, it starts to mellow out. In its mature stage, the valley gets much, much wider. The river's energy isn't just focused on digging down anymore. Now it starts to erode from side to side, in a process called lateral erosion. This is also when you start to see a whole network of smaller streams, tributaries, feeding into the main river, kind of like branches on a tree.
And finally, we get to old age. At this point, the river has done pretty much all of its heavy lifting. The valley is now incredibly wide with really gentle slopes, and it's dominated by this huge flat area called a floodplain. The river itself gets kind of lazy, meandering in these big, wide loops across the very landscape it spent its life creating. Its main job isn't eroding anymore, it's depositing all that fine sediment.
So, for millions of years, this cycle of building up and tearing down was just nature doing its thing. But in just the last few hundred years, a new, unbelievably powerful agent has jumped into the game. And that new agent? It's us. It's time to look at our own human fingerprint on the planet.
As one of our sources puts it, man-made road cuts, fills, and many other kinds of excavations profoundly modify the Earth's surface. And wow, is that an understatement? We aren't just tinkering around the edges anymore. We have become a major geological force in our own right, speeding up these natural processes to a degree the planet has never seen before.
In this chart right here, this chart says it all. Check this out. It shows what happened in an area in Ontario, Canada. With its natural ground cover, only about 10% of the rain became immediate surface runoff. But then, we urbanized it. We paved it over. And look at that number. It skyrockets to 43%. We've basically made the ground waterproof, and that changes everything about how water moves.
So what? Why does that matter? Well, that huge jump in runoff means a much higher risk of flash floods in our cities. It also means less water is soaking into the ground to recharge the groundwater we rely on. And all that extra water gets funneled into streams like a fire hose, giving them way more power, forcing them to change shape and making them much more destructive and unpredictable.
Which leaves us with one final and really crucial thought. We've gotten incredibly good at engineering the Earth to suit our needs. We've become a geological force ourselves. But here's the thing about the Earth's systems. They always push back. They always seek a new balance. So the real question we need to ask is, as we continue to reshape the Earth, are we truly prepared for how it's going to reshape us in return?